On a windswept cliff by the sea, where waves thundered against jagged rocks and gulls cried into the salt-heavy wind, there stood an old lighthouse. Weathered by storms and solitude, its stone walls held stories the sea had whispered across generations. Inside lived a man named Elias, the last lighthouse keeper. He had lived there alone for nearly 40 years, lighting the great lamp each night to guide lost ships away from danger. People in the nearby village spoke of him with quiet respect and a touch of sorrow. Few had seen him in recent years. Fewer still remembered what brought him there. But Elias remembered. He remembered her name. Her name was Anna. Decades earlier, Elias was a young man in love with a girl named Anna. She had eyes like the ocean before a storm, wild, deep, and full of secrets. She was a painter, a dreamer. While others feared the sea, Anna adored it. She'd sit for hours on the edge of the cliff, sketching boats and birds, her long hair dancing in the wind. They made promises under moonlight, whispers shared beneath the lighthouse, dreams scribbled in notebooks neither dared read aloud. They were going to leave together, travel to warmer places where light didn't need to be lit by hand and winters didn't howl through stone. But then came the storm. It was the worst the coast had seen in half a century. The sea rose like a monster, hungry and wild. Anna was painting by the cliff when it began. Elias had gone into the village to fetch supplies. By the time he returned, soaked and breathless, the sky had already swallowed the sun. They found her sketchbook near the hedge, but never her. Elias searched for days, then weeks. He refused to believe she was gone, but the sea, that beautiful, terrible sea, had taken her, and with her, his future. Elias never left the lighthouse, not out of duty, but out of grief. Every night, he lit the lamp, hoping, just hoping, that someday she'd come back, that she'd return in a boat, smiling, saying it was all a mistake. He fixed her sketchbook, page by page, tracing the faded lines with trembling fingers. He learned to paint, not well, but enough to keep her hand alive. Years passed. The world changed, but Elias remained, gray-haired, silent, watching the horizon. They offered to replace him many times. Automation, they said. Modern systems. But he refused, because the light was not just for ships. It was for her. One winter, long after his knees had grown weak and his hands stiff, a letter arrived. It was from a woman claiming to be Anna's niece, a girl not even born when the sea took her aunt. She had found Anna's name in family papers, along with the name of the lighthouse keeper she once loved. "I grew up with her paintings," the letter read. "She survived, barely, but she was never the same. She lost her voice. Her memory, too, faded with time. But sometimes she would whisper your name. In her last years, she painted nothing but lighthouses, always the same one. Enclosed was a final sketch, the lighthouse, the cliff, and two small figures standing hand in hand. Anna had lived, but apart. They had each waited in their own way, not knowing. Elias didn't cry. His tears had dried long ago. He lit the lamp one last time that night with trembling hands. Then he climbed to the very top of the tower and sat beneath the turning beam, staring out at the stars. The sea was calm, the wind gentle, and in that stillness he closed his eyes. Some say the next morning the lighthouse lamp was still burning, but Elias was gone. All that remained was the sketchbook, left open to the final page. Two figures beneath the lighthouse, walking into the sea together. The lighthouse keeper's legacy. Years had passed since the light in the old lighthouse last shone. The villagers said the keeper had passed quietly, like a whisper on the wind. His body was never found. Only his old chair by the lamp, a warm teacup, and her sketchbook open to that last drawing. Most thought it a love story that ended in sorrow. But for Clara, Anna's niece, it was the beginning of something else. She couldn't forget the man in the letters, the one who had loved her aunt beyond time and memory, the one who had waited faithfully even as the world moved on. So she traveled. With a suitcase, a camera, and the sketchbook in her hands, Clara went to the edge of the world, to the place where the sea met the sky, to the lighthouse. She didn't expect what she found. It was abandoned, yes, but not empty. Inside, everything remained as Elias had left it. His boots by the door, the scent of salt and oil, canvases, hundreds of them, lining the walls, each one painted with clumsy but tender strokes. They were of Anna, of her standing by the sea, laughing, painting, waiting. Clara wandered from room to room, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. She felt like she had stepped into a memory. But it was more than that. It was a home. She spent the night there, unable to leave, and the next day, and the one after. The waves crashed like old friends at the windows, and the gulls called out like ghosts of the past. She felt peace. Clara didn't return to the city. She stayed. At first, she told herself it was temporary, just long enough to clean the place, maybe write about it, maybe turn it into a little museum. But the lighthouse had other plans. Villagers came to see it again, drawn by the sight of smoke from the chimney. Fishermen offered to help fix the roof. Children came with questions about the old keeper and the woman in the paintings. Clara told them stories, and one day, without quite knowing why, she climbed the spiral staircase and relit the lamp. The light returned, stretching out across the dark waters like a memory reborn. It was no longer a warning. It was a welcome. Clara began writing letters to her aunt and to Elias, even though they were both gone. She would sit by the fire in the lighthouse and write stories of their love, their loss, and the strange miracle that followed. She published them. The book was small, quiet, but it traveled. People from around the world began visiting the lighthouse, not for its history, but for the hope it carried. Those grieving found comfort there. Artists found inspiration. Lonely hearts found each other on the cliffs where Elias once waited, and Clara found herself. Among the visitors was a man named Theo, a quiet violinist who had read her book during a sleepless winter. He came to see the lighthouse. He stayed for her. They sat on the same cliffs Anna once painted, listening to the waves. He played, she wrote, they laughed. Years later, Clara married Theo at the base of the lighthouse, in a ceremony watched by the gulls, the waves, and the setting sun. She wore a simple dress. He played a song he'd written just for her, called The Lightkeeper's Waltz. As night fell, they lit the lamp together, and as it turned slowly in the tower above, its golden beam stretching across the water, Clara whispered, "This was always meant to be more than a story of loss. It was a story of love, eternal, patient, and reborn." Clara kept the sketchbook on her writing desk. She added a new drawing to the last page, not 2 figures, but 4, Anna and Elias, hand in hand, and beside them, Clara and Theo, walking together down the same shore. The lighthouse still stands today. The lamp still shines. And if you ever visit on a quiet night, they say you can still hear music on the wind and laughter carried across the waves. Not the sound of ghosts, but the echo of love fulfilled.